They had a valid ticket. They arrived early. They followed every rule they thought mattered. And still, the gate agent looked up and said the words no senior traveler ever expects to hear. I'm sorry, you can't board this flight. No argument, no flexibility, no second chance. This isn't a warning about turbulence or delays. This is about something far more serious. Starting in 2026, quiet airport rule changes are catching travelers over 70 completely off guard. And people are being denied boarding, not because they did anything wrong, but because they didn't know what changed. That's the terrifying part. Experience no longer protects you. Flying for decades doesn't protect you. Even flying last year doesn't protect you. The rules you trusted have shifted, and most people won't find out until they're standing at the gate watching their plane pull away. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening. Why seniors are being singled out by systems that don't explain themselves, and how one small detail, one document, one unchecked box, one assumption can quietly cancel your entire trip before it even begins. If you or someone you love plans to fly in 2026, this information could be the difference between a smooth journey and a devastating denial at the airport. Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm sharing this because I've seen what happens when these rules collide with real people. I've watched confusion turn into panic at security. I've watched seniors do everything right and still lose their seat because the policy changed and nobody clearly explained it. These aren't rumors. These aren't edge cases. These are real situations happening now, and they're accelerating as new enforcement standards roll out. What makes this especially painful is that almost every one of these denials is preventable with the right preparation. That's why I'm walking you through this slowly, clearly, and honestly. No jargon, no scare tactics, just the exact things you need to know before you ever step foot inside an airport in 2026. Some of what I'll share may surprise you. Some of it may make you uncomfortable. But all of it is designed to protect you, your trip, and your peace of mind. Because the last thing you should have to worry about after 70 is being blindsided by rules no one bothered to explain. Here's the hard truth most people don't want to hear. The reason so many travelers over 70 are being denied boarding isn't because they suddenly forgot how to fly. It's because airports don't work the way they used to, and the systems no longer bend for experience, loyalty, or good intentions. Everything is automated now. Identity verification, security clearance, boarding approval. It's all driven by databases and compliance rules that gate agents cannot override, even if they want to help you. And seniors are especially vulnerable because many of these changes happen quietly. No letters, no clear announcements, no warnings when you booked your ticket. You show up assuming what worked for decades will still work today, and suddenly you're told something essential is missing. What makes this worse is that the rules aren't enforced evenly. Some people get through without issue, others are stopped cold. That inconsistency creates false confidence. You hear a friend say, I flew last month and everything was fine, and you assume you'll be fine too. But enforcement tightens without notice, and the day it tightens happens to be the day you're flying. That's why this feels so shocking to people. Not because the rule exists, but because no one clearly explained when it would start being enforced with zero flexibility. And once that happens, arguing doesn't help. Explaining your situation doesn't help. Having flown for 50 years doesn't help. The system doesn't care who you are. It only cares whether every requirement is met at that exact moment. That's the shift seniors aren't being warned about. And it's the reason preparation matters more now than it ever has before. Now, we need to talk about the single most common reason seniors are being denied boarding. Because this one alone is responsible for more missed flights than weather, traffic, or delays combined. Your ID, specifically, whether it meets the new federal standards that are now being enforced without exception. As of May 2025, standard driver's licenses are no longer enough to board a domestic flight. And by 2026, enforcement becomes absolute. That means if your license is not Real ID compliant, TSA will stop you before you ever reach the gate. Many seniors don't realize this because they renewed their license years ago and assumed renewal meant compliance. It doesn't. The only thing that matters is whether your license has the Real ID marker. You can check this right now. Look at the top corner of your license. If you see a star inside a circle or cut into the shape of your state, you're compliant. If you don't see that star, your license will not be accepted for air travel. Period. There are no exceptions at the checkpoint. No temporary passes. No, I didn't know. And here's the painful part. TSA agents don't explain this kindly at the moment it happens because they don't have time. They simply stop you, redirect you, and move on to the next person in line. I've watched seniors stand there stunned, holding a license they've used their entire adult life, trying to understand how it suddenly became invalid. One woman arrived 3 hours early to do everything right. She still missed her flight because her license didn't have that star and nobody had ever told her to check. That's why this matters so much. If your license isn't compliant, you do still have options. A valid passport or passport card will always work. But if you don't have one, you must visit the DMV and upgrade your license before your trip, and you can't wait until the last minute. Appointments are booking weeks out as enforcement tightens. This is one of those moments where checking one small detail today can save you from a heartbreaking denial later. If this is already helping you see risks you weren't aware of, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of what you need to know. And tell me in the comments whether you're over 70 or helping someone you care about prepare for a flight. That tells me exactly what to focus on next because this is just the first rule. And the next one catches people off guard in an entirely different way. There's another reason seniors are being stopped that creates a lot of confusion and unnecessary fear. And I want to clear it up carefully because misinformation spreads fast in airports. You do not need a doctor's note simply because you're over 70. Age alone is not a reason an airline can deny you boarding. That part is a myth. But here's where the rules quietly tightened and where people are getting caught. If you require certain types of assistance or medical support during your trip, airlines now require medical clearance documentation in advance. This includes using supplemental oxygen, traveling with medical equipment that could affect safety, or having a condition that might require in-flight medical attention. In late 2025, airlines standardized enforcement around this. And by 2026, gate agents are instructed not to guess or make exceptions. If the documentation isn't in the system before you arrive, they can deny boarding based on safety concerns alone. What confuses people is that each airline calls this paperwork something different. One airline might call it a medical information form. Another calls it a special service request. Another calls it accessible travel services. Different names, same requirement. A form completed by your doctor confirming that you are fit to fly. And here's the detail that trips people up. This must usually be submitted 48 to 72 hours before departure, not the morning of, not at the gate. If you show up without it and the airline believes there's a risk of an in-flight emergency, the decision is already made. The safest approach is simple. If you use oxygen, a wheelchair beyond long airport distances, or you have a heart, lung, or neurological condition that could raise questions, call the airline before your trip. Say clearly, I need to submit medical clearance documentation for my upcoming flight. Can you send me the required form? That sentence alone can save you from being turned away. If you're healthy and flying without assistance, you don't need this. But if you're unsure, it's always better to have documentation you don't end up needing than to need it and not have it when the gate door is closing. Now, let's talk about something far more common and far more frustrating when it goes wrong. Prescription medications. This is one of those rules people don't believe until it happens to them. By 2026, TSA enforcement around medications becomes much stricter, especially for controlled substances and liquids. If you take daily medication, and you usually pack it in a pill organizer. That habit can now cause serious problems at security. Pills must be in their original pharmacy labeled containers, not a plastic divider, not a small bag. The original bottle with your name, the medication name, and the prescribing doctor clearly printed on it. Without that label, TSA has no way to verify that the medication belongs to you or that it's legal for transport. And when controlled substances are involved, they will not take chances. I've seen people lose essential medication right at the checkpoint because it couldn't be verified. The fix is simple, but most people don't know it. Before you travel, ask your pharmacist for a duplicate labeled bottle with just the amount you need for the trip. Many pharmacies will do this at no charge. Always keep medications in your carry-on, never in checked luggage. Bags get delayed. Medication cannot. If you travel with medically necessary liquids, such as insulin or liquid antibiotics, you're allowed to exceed the standard liquid limits, but you must declare them. Don't hide them and hope for the best. Walk up to the officer and say, "I have medically necessary liquids that exceed the standard limit." They'll screen them. It takes a couple of minutes and prevents a much bigger issue. And if you use injectable medications like insulin pens or emergency injectors, carrying a copy of your prescription isn't legally required, but it smooths everything. I've watched travelers delayed for 20 minutes over something that could have been resolved in seconds with a simple prescription printout. These medication rules don't exist to punish you. They exist because security tightened. But knowing them ahead of time keeps your trip calm instead of chaotic. And once you get past security, the rules change again in ways most seniors don't expect. Once you clear the document and medication hurdles, everything shifts again the moment you step into the security line. This is where many seniors assume the experience will be physically demanding, confusing, or humiliating. But there's a little-known rule that actually works in your favor if you know how to use it. Travelers 75 and older are allowed to keep their shoes on during standard TSA screening. This policy has been in place for a while, yet most seniors have never been told. You don't need to pay for anything extra. You don't need a special pass. You simply need to state your age. When you reach the front of the line, say calmly, "I'm 75 and I'd like to keep my shoes on." That's it. It's official TSA policy. You may still need to remove belts with large buckles or metal items, but shoes and light jackets can stay on. This small accommodation makes a big difference, especially for people with balance issues, joint pain, or difficulty bending. Now, if you're under 75, but over 70 and thinking, "What about me?" This is where TSA PreCheck becomes worth considering. PreCheck lets you keep shoes and belts on, leave electronics in your bag, and move through a much shorter line. It costs $78 for 5 years, which sounds like a lot until you realize it breaks down to just over $1 a month. And here's something most people never check. Many credit cards reimburse the full cost of TSA PreCheck as a benefit. Cards like certain travel or rewards cards quietly cover it without advertising it loudly. Before you pay out of pocket, check your card benefits. You may already be entitled to it and not even know it. Reducing time in security lines isn't just about convenience. It's about conserving energy, so you're not exhausted before you even board the plane. Now, let's talk about boarding, because this is where pride gets in the way of safety more often than anything else. Airlines are required by federal law to allow passengers who need extra time or assistance to board before general boarding begins. This includes many seniors, yet so few actually use it. Some feel embarrassed, some don't want to be a burden, some think it costs extra. None of that is true. Pre-boarding is free, and crews prefer it. From the airline's perspective, having you settled safely in your seat before the aisle fills up is better for everyone. If you need extra time to walk down the aisle, store your bag, adjust your seat, or simply catch your breath, you qualify. Age alone isn't the qualifier. Needing extra time is, and many people over 70 do, even if they don't like to admit it. You don't need a doctor's note. You don't need to explain your medical history. When the gate agent is preparing to board, Walk up and say, "I'd like to request pre-boarding because I need extra time to get settled." That's all you have to say. You'll be invited to board during the pre-boarding phase, usually right after active military and families with small children. I've seen what happens when seniors don't ask: crowded aisles, rushed movements, near falls, unnecessary stress. And I've also seen how calm and dignified the experience is when they board early with space, patience, and crew assistance. Pre-boarding exists to protect you. Using it isn't weakness, it's wisdom. If you use any kind of mobility device, even something as simple as a cane or walker, there are changes in the screening process that can feel unsettling if you're not expecting them. In 2025, TSA updated how mobility devices are screened, and by 2026, this process is fully standardized across airports. What this means in practice is that your device may be swabbed, scanned separately, or inspected by hand. This is not because you've done anything wrong. It's routine, but without warning, it can feel invasive or confusing. The key is to communicate early. As soon as you approach the security area, tell the officer, "I use a mobility device and need assistance." They will guide you into a lane designed to accommodate you. Your device will be inspected, and you'll either walk through the metal detector or receive a pat down if walking isn't possible. And this is important. If you cannot stand or walk safely, you have the right to remain seated in your wheelchair during screening. You can say, "I need to remain seated for screening due to mobility limitations." That phrase matters. It signals a protected accommodation. If you ever feel rushed or pressured, you can request a TSA supervisor. Supervisors are trained on these procedures and will make sure the screening is handled properly. One small preparation tip that makes everything easier: if your walker or wheelchair collapses, fold it before reaching the scanner if you're able. It speeds up the process and reduces stress. And if you can't do it yourself, ask for help. That's what the officers are there for. Now, let's talk about wheelchair assistance at the airport, because this is one of the biggest reasons seniors miss flights. And it has nothing to do with flight delays. If you need wheelchair assistance to get through the airport, it must be requested in advance, not at the curb, not at check-in. Ideally, when you book your ticket or at least 48 hours before your flight, airlines don't provide this service on the spot the way people assume they do. They contract it out to third-party companies that schedule staff based on advance requests. If you show up needing a wheelchair without having requested one, you may wait 30 minutes or more for help. And I've seen people miss boarding because of that wait. When you book your ticket online, look for a section labeled Special Services or Accessibility Requests and select Wheelchair Assistance. If you're booking by phone, say clearly, "I need wheelchair assistance from check-in to the gate and from the gate to baggage claim on arrival." Be specific so nothing is missed. If you've already booked your flight and didn't request it, call the airline now and have it added to your reservation. And let me reassure you of something very important. Wheelchair assistance is free on all U.S. airlines. It's protected under federal law. You are not imposing. You are not asking for a favor. You are using a service designed to keep you safe. Airports are enormous, distances are long, and exhaustion leads to falls. Asking for help isn't giving up independence, it's protecting it. And once you understand that, flying becomes much less intimidating. There's something else that rarely gets talked about, and it affects far more seniors than most people realize. Not all disabilities are visible. You might look perfectly fine walking through the terminal, but still struggle with chronic pain, arthritis, breathing problems, balance issues, anxiety in crowded spaces, or cognitive fatigue. These are real conditions, and they are protected under federal law even if no one can see them. The problem is that airlines and crews can't offer help if they don't know you need it. They're not allowed to assume. That's why so many seniors suffer in silence, pushing themselves through situations that make travel miserable when accommodations were available the entire time. You're allowed to ask for help even if you don't use a wheelchair or cane. You can request extra time, early boarding, help navigating the airport, or a seat closer to the aisle or restroom if you have a medical reason. The key is how you ask. You don't need to share personal details. Simply say, I have a disability that's not immediately visible, and I need an accommodation. Then explain the accommodation, not the diagnosis. For example, I need extra time to board so I don't feel rushed. Or I need assistance through the terminal because long distances cause pain. These are considered reasonable accommodations, and airlines are required to provide them. What they can't do is guess. Speaking up isn't complaining. It's communicating a need so your trip can be safe and dignified. Too many seniors think they have to endure discomfort to prove they're capable. You don't. These protections exist because you deserve them. Before we wrap up, there's one insider habit that flight crews wish more senior travelers would adopt because it quietly makes everything safer without drawing attention. If you're traveling alone, tell a flight attendant during boarding. Just a simple, "Hi, I'm traveling alone today and wanted to let you know in case I need assistance." That's it. You're not asking for special treatment. You're giving us awareness. It means if there's turbulence, we'll check on you. If you need help reaching a bag or finding the restroom, we're already alert. If there's an emergency, we know who might need extra guidance. In years of flying, I've seen that one quiet sentence make an enormous difference. Not because we hover or treat you differently, but because we're prepared. And preparation is what this entire conversation has been about. These airport rules aren't designed to punish seniors. They exist because air travel has become more complex, more automated, and less forgiving of missing information. The good news is that once you know the rules, you regain control. You don't have to be anxious. You don't have to feel powerless. You just have to be informed. So, before your next trip, check your ID, prepare your documents, request the help you're entitled to, and never hesitate to speak up. You've earned the right to travel safely and comfortably. If you have a concern about flying as a senior, security lines, long walks, medical equipment, boarding, share it in the comments. I read everyone, and your questions shape what I cover next. And if this helped you, please share it with someone who might need it. One conversation like this can prevent a missed flight, a lost vacation, or a dangerous situation. You deserve peace of mind when we